Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus 3D printing video. It's now been actually quite a few months since my last one, which I think was like back in September. So in this video I'm gonna kind of update you on what's been going on with the 3D printing, as I haven't made all that many 3D printing videos, and I just want to tell you how 3D printing is currently going. And other than, of course, the first video that I had, this is probably the first one that I have where the 3D printer is actually operating. And as you can see, it's actually printing something at the moment, which I know you probably can't read the screen, but it's a print that's about 20% done. And at the moment that I'm recording this, it's 8 o'clock at night on Tuesday. So it'll probably be done around tomorrow afternoon. And that's one thing, I don't know if I had made mention of that in the first video, because I don't think I'd really done all that many long prints, if you will. But some prints actually do take quite a while. And as I had made mention in my other video, it's the good old-fashioned quality versus speed thing. This is a print of a, one piece of a 7-piece print. And this piece takes about 20 hours, but it's kind of the point of, I could print it faster, but I've printed stuff fast and you get a lot of heavy layer lines, or you just get these messed up lines in the prints, and I just don't like that, so I just tend to print slower, and I just tend to get better results. And if you haven't seen it already, this is an arm for something, and it's an item that I've already done a 3D print of. You won't see it in this video because its painting is like 90% done, and I don't want to show it until it's fully done. But one thing I will update, if you haven't seen it, like in the corner of your screen here, since I've been talking for like 2 minutes, it's right here, is that Rocksteady figure I'd mentioned in the previous video. Now it is absolutely completely done. See, here he is. And he is closer to the original figure. I kind of did these custom camo stripes on the pants. But yeah, I think it came out pretty good. And the way I reattached the arm is I took a piece of metal coat hanger. Somehow I glued it to the internal thing that's in the arm. And then I glued it to the actual arm, and it keeps it like in there. It's not in there too nice, but it's better than the figure not having an arm. And yeah, this was actually finished fairly recently. But yeah, there's my original Rocksteady figure. Just got to be careful with him because, as I'd mentioned in the last video, this is only printed with 2 outer shells, and it tends to be a little bit more fragile. All my figures I did after this are 3 outer shells, so they tend to be a bit more sturdy. But another print that was sprayed at the same time as him is Grimace here. This is the 100% scale Grimace. This was actually a free one. It has a little mark here. I don't know where that came from, but I barely notice it. And there's another one here. If stuff sticks into the actual clear coat spray, then you'll get those problems. But yeah, he looks pretty good here. I think I did his face fairly decent. But yeah, there's Grimace. But one of the 3D prints I wanted to showcase here really quick is, originally I'd done this Jollibee. Jollibee is a Filipino fast food mascot. And this it didn't take too long. I think this was done in less than a day. And then I painted it, clear coated it. Took forever to paint it because, unfortunately, whenever you have colors that intersect here, that will you'll get like red in the yellow, yellow the red, and before you know it, you're painting the same thing over and over again. So after a while, you just got to stop and be like, you know what, it looks good enough. But after I did this one, in fact, while I was doing this one, the whole plan was to make a bigger one. So there's this one, which, as you can see, there's the small one and there's the big one. I think this is like 280% scale. This is the largest single 3D print, meaning a non-stop print that I've ever done. I think this took about 3 days, but it didn't use a whole roll of filament, so that was good. But yeah, here's Jollibee, and he looks pretty good here. Okay, and one print I want to make mention of from the previous video that, yeah, he's almost fully done, but he'll be getting his own video eventually, is Big Shredder here. Here is Big Shredder. You'll see he has the gray body, black legs. Everything is actually pretty cartoon accurate. His face looks a little bit better than Little Shredder. But I have to get him a cape, and I'm also going to get both Shredders a belt, which the plastic belts didn't work out too well, so I will be using like Velcro, like a guy I'd seen do another video about these. Since I'm looking at the stuff that's sitting over here on this particular table, I'll show you the other two big items here. This was a model I found free on Colts. This is Lupin. He's actually pretty big. And he's got this big, like, wedge of cheese base. Because when it printed, it actually printed like this. So, when it was coming off of the printer, it looked like a big wedge of cheese. This, I think I only printed in 10% infill. And, it's really light. So I have to kind of be careful with it. But I think I did a decent job on this. And now, a couple things I'm going to touch on after I show this next model. Because it's sitting over on the same table, and it's actually quite a bit more heavier. And this was one of the prints I did much earlier. Actually, it's not too heavy. I was mistaken. But here's Krang. I never had this toy when I was young, and it's cool that I could make my own. And there's the little Krang brain. I think I got his details pretty nice if the camera will focus. And then there's the android head. The little thing on the top broke off one side to super glue it back on, but that was a fun one to paint. But the one thing I will correct myself on that I had said in the previous video, and I'm sure when I do eventually get around to making Big Shredder's cape and putting that video together, is that the whole idea of painting the parts and then putting them together is not a good idea. So whatever you do, please don't do that, because the problem is sometimes the plastic can break when you try to put the arms into the arm holes and the legs into the leg holes. So by all means, put the action figures together before you paint them, because I've already had pieces snap when I tried to put them together before. But another one I want to show you here is Little Shredder. He's not completely finished. As I said, he still needs his belt, but here he is. And as you can see, he does have his purple cape, and it's actually material, so I think it came out quite nicely. What you see him standing on is a free Masters of the Universe stand. I've printed quite a few of these, and they work out quite well for some figures. The one that Big Shredder is standing on is actually 225% scale. So that takes like 14 hours, I think, to print. But let me just show you a few more of the figures I've printed. There's a bunch that are actually still on my desk. They're not finished being painted, so those won't be seen in this video yet. But I will eventually show those off. But another one that's a non-action figure print, this is actually called a torture test, is Forrest Gump here. He's sitting on his bench. I think I did a decent job. I do plan at some point to make a larger version of this, because I'll reveal it in this video, but I plan to get the Elegoo Neptune 3 Max, which should be coming in the next couple days, and that video will follow. And the first print will be a big version of Forrest Gump that will fill the whole print bed, and I will be able to do the details a bit better, but I don't think I did them too bad on this one. But another thing I want to touch on when it comes to 3D printing is what's called retraction. And what retraction is, when the 3D printer is printing, the filament is always out, and then it's got to extrude and then connect to other filament. But retraction means is the filament pulls back into the extruder, so it doesn't get all stuck over everything and create like strings all over everything. And that's very useful for making cleaner 3D prints. And that's something that you would do when it's called a retraction test. It looks kind of like a little wrestling ring, and if there are strings that stick between the four little poles, then you know your retraction is not right. But if there are no strings, then your retraction is perfect. And now let me show you, I'm just going to try to go through these fairly quickly, because as you would imagine, since the last printing, last video, I made a considerable amount of action figures because honestly, they're just really fun to make. And I will eventually have a decent like shelving system like above my desk in the 3D printer where I will like stand most of these. But the first two I'm going to show you here are Marty and Doc here. And now these are actually based off of what are called reaction figures, which are 3.75 inch little figures. But since I had actually, let me see if I can just grab it really quick. I had actually printed, yeah, I got it. I printed a 100% scale version of the Marty reaction figure, and look how tiny he is. I got the face okay. Camera doesn't even want to focus on it, it's so small. But then what I did was I printed them as 2x scale figures. And these are 7.5 inch figures, and they were a lot easier to paint. And I think the faces came out okay. As I'd mentioned in the last video, I'm not like the best artist in the world, but I do a decent job. But when it comes to any of these reaction figures, I always do 2x scale. So a few more I'm going to show you here are from the movie The Fifth Element. And as I said, some people might say I'm not a great artist, but I think I do halfway decent, and I think these guys look kind of like what they're supposed to be. So here's Corbin Dallas. He looks a bit like Bruce Willis, but the funny part is, honestly, when I first printed him and he wasn't painted, I kind of thought he looked like Forrest Gump. But there he is. And then we have the thermal bandaged version of Lilu. And then finally we have Zorg. And now the original version of him, he had the striped suit on, but I liked this whole like color gradient outfit he wears. And I think I got that pretty decent, which I took the paint and while it was still wet, I kind of blended it on his outfit. And I think in the long run, it came out pretty good. Because it's one of my favorite movies. Of the 7 figures in the line, these 3 figures and the bad alien guy, you know, those weird bad alien guys from the film, those figures are out, but I haven't finished the bad alien guy yet. And now, another couple figures I'm going to show really quick here, as they're really not that interesting, and I don't think I did too great of a job on them, were these figures here. They are Teela from Masters of the Universe here. I don't like their faces because like their heads are as small as my thumb, and they're really hard to paint. And then we have Evelyn. And their stands are the same stand file that Shredder uses, but it's scaled at 85% because then it fits them perfectly because their feet are so much smaller. And I do plan another project that you will see with the Teela model that I will eventually be showing off. And now let me just show a couple more of these really quick here. I just gotta, oh, I know where the third one is of these. They're kind of the good old-fashioned, these figures are related to each other So let's show them all together type deal. Since I had printed that Michelangelo figure, there was a guy who had these models that had the other three Ninja Turtles in their storage shell variants. So here's Raphael. He has a bit darker green on his skin. He looks really, really, really crazy. Here's Leonardo. And then finally, here's Donatello, who looks extremely crazy, and he has the prototype Shredder cape on right now because I thought it made him look even more crazy. Plus, it just wasn't long enough for Shredder, so I had to make it a little longer, but I just left the prototype Shredder cape on Donatello because I thought it looked kind of funny. And now, let me just see. Let me just grab this one here. Now, here's Ryu. This is like a 5-inch Masters of the Universe size figure. I might make a bigger version of this at some point, as I now know. Well, I'm going to actually give that pointer in this video because I just discovered this a few days ago. These use connectors, like for the waist here. It uses a connector that basically looks like two little things that snap into the hole. But the problem is if you print them vertically, when you try to press the connector in, it'll snap on the layer lines. So the best bet is anything that has one of those connectors, especially if it's a larger item, print it sideways, because then the layer lines are going this way, so then when you try to pop it into the connector, there's less stress on the layer lines and they won't just break right off. But now, another couple figures that I printed fairly early. Well, let me grab this one because it's the biggest one of this bunch. And I just don't want to drop it and have it break. That's another thing I'll come out and say right now. When it comes to 3D printed figures versus like ones you get in the store, they can be a bit more delicate, so they're more like art pieces than actual play toys. But here is Goro from Street Fighter. This I had found on Colts. It was actually free. He even came with his own little stand here. Now the pain in the neck here was the hair. I couldn't get it to stay in the head. And then I finally had to like glue it and do all kinds of stuff. But yeah, there it is, and it actually worked out quite good. But this one was a real pain in the neck. And just like Ryu, this is or Ryu if you will, this is a 5-inch figure. Similar to, this is done in, as they tend to say on the different sites, MOTU style, which is Masters of the Universe style. And to go along with that figure, well, I'll just grab him, but he has a nice little stand. But here is Liu Kang. He has a little stand. I'm going to show SubZero in about a minute here. And the stand with Liu Kang is exactly the same as SubZero's, but it says Liu Kang. Okay, well, here is SubZero. And with SubZero, this is an interesting one. See how it says SubZero on the stand? But the arms were wrong for the character, so what I had to end up doing was modifying this and gluing the arms to the character's body, so he's more or less a statue. He's not really an action figure, but I still think he looks pretty cool. And now, there were two more of those Mortal Kombat ones. And just, once again, I'm not going to grab his stand, but it's a little gray stand and it says Raiden on it. But yeah, here's Raiden. I think he looks pretty cool. He's like the Mortal Kombat 3 variant. Gonna put him back. And then finally, I will show you the last one. Here is the last one. This is Shao Kahn. He just has this generic Mortal Kombat stand that has some skulls on it. I think he came out pretty cool. He had a hammer, and I tried painting it, but I just never really finished it. But eventually I will finish it. Now there's only a couple more to show you guys. Now here's Egon from the real Ghostbusters, and he actually fits on one of these He-Man Masters of the Universe stands pretty well. I'm hoping that it's focusing a little bit on these, but I think his color is a little bit off. He has this proton pack over there, but I just haven't really attached it or anything. And I actually do have the other Ghostbusters on my desk, and I'm currently painting them. They're just not done yet at the moment. And then another figure I have here is Super Shredder. This was a real pain in the neck, and actually a couple of the spikes didn't print right, but when you look at it quick, you really can't notice. And let me show you a pair of figures that I will go ahead and shout out the guy who made these guys. And I will let you know that most of the models that I'm showing in this video did cost a little bit of money, usually only a few dollars each. But here is Shredder, which this is a Shredder done in the Masters of the Universe style by a guy on Colts. His name is Juan Carlos, but I don't remember what his username is on there. And he's got this big plastic cape that took longer than the whole figure to print. And then we have here Leonardo, and it was just a Ninja Turtle model, but I made it into Leonardo because it came with swords. Eventually I'll get all the swords and like put them in his hands and everything, but yeah, there's Leonardo. But yeah, very good stuff from him. And speaking of Juan Carlos, I just want to show another one of his. Is this one here. This is the only other one of his other than those two that I made. And this is Ash from the Evil Dead movies. He's got his chainsaw and everything. And I think I did a pretty good job on these guys. And let me see. There's only a couple more to show you guys. And then we'll be done with all the crazy 3D prints I've been doing the last few months. Okay, let me just go through all the Ninja Turtle ones really quick. We got April O'Neil, who fits in a regular Masters of the Universe stand. We have the Rat King. And then finally, well, her glasses fell off, but I could put them back on really quick here. We have Irma. And with any of these figures, I didn't print them. I didn't paint them the way that the figure was actually made. I tried to make it more close to the cartoon. And also here, I have Splinter. I haven't made his kimono yet, but eventually I will. And I think this might be the last Ninja Turtles one here. This one is... This is the Samurai Rabbit. He's something Yojimbo. But I'll put it on the screen if I can remember to do that. And now, another random figure I have here is a custom figure I made, which was a custom action figure I made of Barack Obama. I basically took a generic male Masters of the Universe body and then put his head on it, modeled from a bust that somebody had downloadable online. And now another figure I have here is Captain Jack Sparrow. This is one of those that's supposed to be jointed at the arm, but not jointed anywhere else. But it didn't quite fit together too well, so I had to super glue it. But it's kind of a nice display piece, I think. I don't think his eyes came out the best, but he could have looked worse. And, yeah, just a couple more here and I'm done. We have... I printed all of the guys from the A-Team. So here is Hannibal. And now these were actually this size. That's how they came off the printer. Here is Templeton Peck, who is also known as Face. And then here is Howling Mad Murdoch. And finally, the one that I did first is B.A. Baracus, also known as Mr. T. His eyes look like he's a little bit confused, but I think I did it okay, and I had this gold paint that's kind of shiny. I think it ended up looking pretty nice. And as I said, once I get my shelves up, I'll put all these guys on the shelves, and they won't be so cluttered here. And now, I think there's only like 1 or 2 more to go. Yeah, 1 or 2 more to go. We have this Sindel statue here. Unfortunately, on her one hand, her thumb broke off. I plan to make a bigger version of this, but this is 150% scale for this. And then finally, the last one I have that's completely finished is this Yoshimitsu. And this one was designed to be like a really crazy looking version of Yoshimitsu, but I made him look more like his Tekken 3 variant than the one that they made him into in the actual model this was based off of. And now to explain the base, I had some extra paint and I painted it that color at one point. I kind of liked how it looked, so I just left it that way. And I thought that works. Now, just a couple of more pointers. If you're painting anything, if you're printing anything on the 3D printer that's tall, I recommend a glue stick such as this one here, which is a Elmer's washable school glue disappearing purple glue stick. I don't know if you can tell on the printer bed right now, but there actually is some glue stick, and that makes the print stick onto the bed, so there is no problem, especially when stuff is tall, that it would lose adhesion with the build plate. And you see they come in a pack of 3, and they're usually about $5, and these last you a decent amount of time. Another note I will make from the previous video is that the figures that have the joints that are too loose that print in place, such as Rocksteady here, the creator who made those, I'm pretty sure either A, they don't make them anymore, or B, they've switched to ones that are that you assemble. Like some of the figures I have, just as I had said, you print the torso, you print the arms, you put them together. Some of them you put the front and the back of the chest together, and then you put the arms into that. But those pre-jointed ones, I don't see those anymore. But yeah, that's basically where I am with 3D printing. I've printed a lot of stuff. There are still quite a few on the desk that aren't finished. And I'm printing more and more stands for a lot of these figures. And that's probably going to be something, well, after Big Shredder finally makes his video, and after my Elegoo Neptune 3 Max video, which, mind you, unlike people on YouTube, I'm not sponsored by them. I actually paid my own money for that, so that's not a sponsored video, and that'll kind of be my own experience, but yeah. Okay, well this is just going to be a quick insert shot in the very end here, just to add a couple of things that I kind of forgot in the actual video. One thing I wanted to make mention of is some of the 3D prints that I do, such as Lupin over here. They're printed in multiple pieces, and you have to kind of put them together. So what I use is this product here. It is Elmer's Pro Bond Wood Filler. It's actually a really good product, and it kind of resembles like a putty. The nice part about this is it washes off your hands, and it paints nicely. And other than that, is once it dries in about like 15, 20, 30 minutes, you can sand it. So if you put too much on, you can easily sand it off and have a nice smooth surface, and you don't have like a void where two parts joint, because that's kind of the problem when you print stuff in pieces and you have to put it back together, especially if it has like pegs and they don't quite like line up right. This is a godsend. I really like this stuff, and I will definitely get another tub of this once it runs out, because this is like a 2-pound tub. Yeah, 32 ounces there. Another thing I want to make mention of is 3D prints don't always come nice and smooth. Sometimes you get some nastiness on them. This is sandpaper. I just got this like little package at like Job Lots. It's a discount store around here. And this gets roughness off the prints, like when support material won't come off right or something. And that's really nice. It's a very good thing to have. A very useful tool when it comes to 3D printing. And I use this quite often, especially with the figures, because what'll often happen is like underneath the arm, like for instance, let's say like Ash here, underneath his arm here, it will have the nastiness from the support material, so you just sand that off, and yeah, you're all ready to go. But you'll see the 3D print a little bit further now, since it's been a couple hours since I did the beginning of the video. And as you can see, I have some different filament here. This is some Sunlu white Meta PLA. And yeah, I tend to get a bunch of PLA all at once, and not like roll by roll or anything. And another thing, I don't know if I made mention of this in the previous 3D printing video, is super glue is very useful. Because if something breaks off, you just put some of this on, push it all together, and guess what? Your 3D print is now glued. It's all set to go. And another thing I will make quick mention of is, of course, paintbrushes are very important if you plan to paint your 3D prints, just like I do. So, you want some good paintbrushes. I've been going through different ones. I haven't really found like that sweet spot yet, and the best paintbrush, it's in one of the Batman Forever cups from McDonald's that I got when I was young, because yeah, I figured I needed a cup for my paintbrushes and it keeps them organized. But paintbrushes are kind of something you need to use if you're going to be painting your 3D prints. But I just figured I would add a couple of pointers here in the end of the video, just to tell you a couple of extra things about 3D printing that I kind of have learned. And I'm sure in my future videos I will include more pointers about 3D printing. Well, this has been another Game Nexus 3D printing video, and I shall see you later. Bye.